Tribal or regional.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV. We're going to be looking at the dailies on Daybreak now, and we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, where the lead story reads, "A road crashes, 4,387 killed in 6 months." You also have the riders, FCT, Ogun, Nasarawa top chart. Figures rise in second quarter. Speeding, substandard tires, brake failure, major causes. You have 307,554 violations recorded according to the FRSC, and all of that on page 4. Now, above the lead story, you have Amnesty International asked Lagos to hold burial of 103 #EndSARS victims on page 7. Rising cost of living, crippling businesses, households. That's according to NECA on page 23. Jigawa seeks recovery of encroached property in Kano. Also, the pictorial there shows you a cross-section of Nigerians trekking from work, specifically in, you have Lagos residents trekking home after work. In the pictures there, you could see protests in Edo State by civil society organizations, and also another picture there showing you more Nigerians trekking. So that's the situation right now. Palliatives, we don't trust the process, says the TUC on page 33. Kogi SDP governorship campaign office set ablaze on page 12. Police arrest 4 Boko Haram members plotting to attack Atiku's house on page 5. And then students must have a registered company before graduation, according to Uni Abuja VC. These are the major stories on Daily Trust cover page.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper, and then it has a lead story that says subsidy pain, Labour talks tough, ASU protesters condemn relief plans, and the first rider, Sanu ASU say fuel subsidy unintelligently removed. NLC meets today. We also have another rider here that says TUC rejects 5% telecom tax, plan tuition hike. This is as Kwara, Ogun State's rollout palliatives. And beneath the pictorial, we have supervisors, invigilators selling WAEC questions online arrested on trial. This according to the WAEC boss. Pregnant women, children among Ondo tanker fire victims. This is according to witnesses. And we also have 3 Osun students hospitalized as gunmen open fire on barbers. And just above the masthead, we have most Nigerian leaders' knowledge of development shallow. This is according to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. We also have forex crisis, passengers groan as foreign airlines hike fares. Still on the Punch, Navy won't stop burning vessels ferrying stolen crude. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right. The Guardian newspaper, where you have the lead story, made in Nigeria smartphones fumble as monthly importation hits 50 billion naira. You also have a breakdown of the critical metals in a smartphone. Then you have Akpabio eyes constitutional role for traditional rulers as Abbas commits to restructuring. Tribunal nullifies LP candidate election, declares PDP Elumelu winner. Petrol subsidy, making palliatives work for the people. You have mass burial. Amnesty International tackles Lagos government on identities of #EndSARS victims. You have also Nigeria has failed Africa. Poorly implemented policies drive citizens to poverty, says Obasanjo. You also have, as creativity goes awry, under guise of skit making pranks. All right, so these are the main stories on the Guardian newspaper.
Now let's take a look at it this day. It has a lead story that is from the statement by the former president, but on taking another angle. It says, Nigeria is sitting dangerously on a keg of gunpowder. This is according to the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. And the first rider says government driving people into poverty through poorly managed good policies. And then the second rider declares nation has disappointed Africa world. Pride self on recruiting some of the best hands. And beneath, just beneath the pictorial, we have Arasi arms proliferation sustained by absence of punishment for offenders. And above the masthead, we have House vows to recover $9 billion gas flaring fines imposed on oil companies. And above that, police arrest 4 suspects in plot to attack Atiku others. These are the major stories on this day newspaper for today.
All right. All right. Now, let's take some perspectives to some of the stories here. This morning we have in the studio Dr. Theophilus Abba, the Director of Daily Trust Foundation, with us to give some perspectives. Thank you so much for joining, Doctor, on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the lead story on the Punch newspaper. It says Labour talks tough. That's talking about the subsidy paying. It says Labour talks tough. ASU protesters condemn relief plans. You also have SANU ASU say fuel subsidy unintelligently removed. NLC meets today. TUC rejects 5% telecom tax. Planned tuition hike. Kwara Ogun rolled out palliatives and so on. You also have TUC on the Daily Trust newspaper saying that they do not trust the process anymore. This is coming weeks after we've seen the first meeting between the TUC, Labour, and the federal government. What exactly is going on? We've made several attempts to get, ESCOs or members of the TUC and NLC to come here and perhaps just give us an update on what's happening, with that negotiation and that meeting between the federal government. But to no avail. Now we're hearing that they do not trust the process.
Well, the issue is that if the TUC and NLC are saying that they no longer trust the process, then it's a disaster. Because we were thinking that when the president or the presidency talked about, 2 months, talks with the Labour, and they'll come up with a formidable program that will help, alleviate the kind of pains that will come with the subsidy removal. We thought that it was going to be genuine. Now, if the process is deemed not to be genuine, then I think, it's a disaster. Because, you see, when you talk about palliatives must be based on data, must be based on some realistic measures. Like we saw a picture in Lagos, people trekking. Trekking, it's not the right thing. It's not the kind of picture that you see in a country like Nigeria. People trekking for a long distance going to work. So if the government is not in agreement with Labour, then they have to sit down and go and agree. Because if they don't agree, it means that the suffering that Nigerians will pass through, will continue for a very long time. You see, one of the criticisms against what the president did is this. We know that over the years, there was corruption that attended to subsidy removal. But then there has to be measures put in place. And from all what I've read over the years, we talked about the measures. For number one, you have to be refining petroleum in Nigeria. We talked about that, and a lot of money was given to NNPC to revive the refineries that were comatose. Now we talked about Dangote refinery, and we're thinking that if you refine these petroleum products in Nigeria, it will reduce the cost. Even if we're going to pay more, it won't be as much as what you pay importing this product from outside Nigeria. We have seen all these things. Those things were not done. With nobody is even talking about the refineries working. Because the NMT said the refineries work in the first quarter, it didn't happen. It talks about second quarter, it didn't happen. The second quarter is ended in June. Now we are in the third quarter, and the NMT is not even giving us an update. I think later I heard he was saying before the end of the year. So they are not even keeping to their timelines. You see, the reason why Nigerians are lamenting is not really because removing subsidy is a crime. But then how do you remove the subsidy? How do you reduce the pains? And if the TUC and the NLC are saying that what government is doing is not they are not in agreement with them, then it's quite unfortunate. You don't trust the process. That's unfortunate. Now we keep hearing that what state governments are getting now is shut up, and these people are talking about their own palliative. They give somebody 10,000. They say don't work, come to work 3 days in a week, and all this and all that. That will not solve the problem, because the cost of living has gone very, very high. Now, if you say, okay, you are exchanging the dollar, for 700 and something officially, it means that you have to increase salaries and increase substantially. Because if at the time the dollar was 400 and whatsoever, my salary was, let's say, 80,000. Now you have increased this, the dollar exchange rate by about maybe 80%. Then my salary has to increase. If not, it will not be at par. Because if the policy is that, we increase we devalue the naira and keep people at the salary they were earning, you're actually deliberately impoverishing the people. You are increasing the people's suffering.
All right, Dr. Abba, earlier we had 2 economists here, and one of them insisted that one of the reasons why Nigerians are really bearing this kind of brunt is because of the fact that we had 2 serious policies at the same time, unification of the naira and subsidy removal. And one of them says that one of the ways to go about it is if there's a different window through which importers of fuel can get the dollar. Would that help in your view?
Now
that way they won't be getting at the current 800 and
Now, yes, if there were a window where those who import fuel get the dollar at a lower rate, it could help. But you see, we'll discover that even if you talk about the dollar that Nigeria earned during the era of Buhari, you see, about 60% of what we earned, as dollars went into petroleum importation. People went to the CBN to say, I want to import fuel, and they were giving the license to import, giving the dollars to import at the what you call official rate. And I'm not sure all of them use that money to import.
Wasn't
fuel.
that because there was subsidy?
No, the importation is different from dollar. Accessing dollar is different from subsidy. Accessing, I think it's because they wanted petroleum to be available for Nigerians to use. You understand? But you see, the whole thing is.
But did we have private people having the license to import at that time? Before, under the Buhari,
it was actually NNPC that was doing the importation. It was NNPC. The NNPC will bring in a dollar for what is sold at crude oil, and then use, a subsidiary part of that money to import refined product. I think that was what was happening. But if you go to the CBN chart, you see that much of the dollar, a good percentage of the dollar that we got went into importation of petroleum resources. The past we were thinking that it was Nigerians were importing toothpick and all. It wasn't the toothpick. It was actually petroleum products. So what we are saying is that if you refine your products in Nigeria, there's no way you can be sending so much dollar out of the country. So the basic thing is this: we must refine. If you want to bring down the cost of fuel, if you want to reduce the people's suffering, and if you devalue the naira, then you must increase salaries, because you cannot devalue the naira to such a point that people can no longer live on what they earn. It's not a living wage, but people can no longer survive on what they earn. If you enter the street today, people you meet somebody on the road, find a well-dressed young lady, you say, good morning, sir, please, I'm going to I need transfer money. Not only women, young men also do the same thing. You guys know how to run a society. Because if you are embarking on policies, you must ensure that those policies will enable Nigerians to survive, not to
All right, there's a statement yesterday that has received a lot of backlash, and it's by former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshomole, that said that Tinubu did not, that Tinubu is not a magician. APC didn't promise overnight a solution. How do you react to that statement?
Well, we've heard that, again and again. During the Buhari era, we're looking at what Buhari promised. And we brought out the document, by APC document, about the promises they made concerning different sectors. And then those close to Buhari made the similar statement that, it wasn't Buhari that made those promises, it was just a document. Now, you can't say you want to be president of Nigeria without knowing the fundamental, without knowing how to deal with, the challenges that are facing the country. It was the same APC government that was in power for 8 years. It wasn't another government, the same APC government, and these people supported that government. So you cannot come and tell us that, oh, you didn't promise any. If you didn't promise a miracle, let me put it that way, then you must work towards achieving, dealing with the problems we are facing. So you cannot come and begin to give us excuses. You were the one who said you wanted to be president. We didn't ask you to come and become president. You say you wanted to be president. You say it is your turn, and you are not telling us that you didn't promise an overnight change. We're not talking about. You must put in place measures to tackle issues.
All right.
You can't come and begin to give us excuses. In every country, developed societies, before you enter into government, you must have studied, what the fundamentals are. You must have had your plans, you must have done baseline study of the situation in the country and say, this is how we're going to do that, this is how we're going to do this. But if you now come, you stand on the podium and say, I remove subsidy, it means that you have planned something to do. Now you remove subsidy without any plan. You're not telling, oh, you are going to meet with people to discuss this and to discuss. There are things that ought to be in place before you do things like this.
All right, Dr. Abba, we also have the former president lending his voice to this issue, and he says on the front page of the This Day, he says, government driving people into poverty through poorly managed good policies. So he acknowledges that the policies are good, but then he says they are poorly managed. What do you make of that?
Well, when Obasanjo was president, he too tinkered with the removal of subsidy, but he didn't remove it totally. At a point, he removed it to a certain percent. I think the last one he did in 2007, when Yar'Adua took over, he revised it. So a lot of Nigerians know that this subsidy has been draining resources. This subsidy is being stolen. You understand? But then the fact is that, you see, if you are removing the subsidy, you must put some things in place. And that's what all of us are saying. If you go to maybe the UK, there's no subsidy on petroleum product, fine. But you can enter the train from one place to another. You don't need to take a taxi. You may not need to take a taxi. You can move from one place to another. You have electricity. You have this. You have that. It's available. Some of these things are. They are low-cost houses. Where the poor people can live. So there's a lot of things that mitigate the impact of whatever we call the commercial rate that you pay for fuel. But in Nigeria, there's nothing like that. Now, you see, every day, government is saying we don't want to subsidize, don't subsidize this, don't want to subsidize that. There's nothing that you are getting from government today to say, oh, this thing I'm getting, because I'm a Nigerian citizen. It's getting smaller and smaller, those things that we... So if you don't plan, to ensure that Nigerians live a good life, then why should you come and become the president of Nigeria? So the policy is good, but it's being implemented in the wrong way. I think that's the issue. And I agree with him. Even though I disagree with him in several areas, that a lot of things that he himself did as president, which were not correct. We have seen the implications. So many government parastatal agencies that were sold out, we discovered that most of them are not working. So he is part of those who took who took decisions that affect us negatively. All right,
we're talking about the federal government. We also have the state government saying that they're going to go back to their states now and generate lists for, they have said that the initial list, the one that existed before now, lacked integrity. So they are going to their states to generate lists. And there have been a lot of comments about that. What do you make of that?
No, well, the first list, let me call it first list now, you got the one under Buhari government. All of us were suspicious of that list. We heard a lot of stories, where, the government will pack cash and display it before TV camera and then disappear with the money and say, oh, the people have been giving money. A lot of allegations like that we've heard so much about that. Now, you see, my problem is this. If you say you are doing palliative, this handout, I don't know whether the handout is the right step to take. Now, if you say, okay, you are giving all Nigerians, you are giving it to all Nigerians, maybe I will accept. But if you now say, okay, there are people who are poor, and then you are saying you got your data from somewhere, even the state government, do we trust them so much? These are state governments who collect money from Abuja and would not pay salaries. You go to some local governments in this country, they are dead because the governors have, I mean, have collected their monthly allocation and they are using the money the way they want. So how do you think we trust these state governors so much to the point of saying, oh, they are going to come out with is it not in the same state that we have many ghost workers? We have ghost schools in many states. Schools don't exist, but salaries are paid into those accounts. So how do we trust them to generate a genuine list? So my own concern is that if you are coming up with palliatives, you have to be those things that affect the people generally. Like I keep talking about, transportation is the major one. Healthcare is a major one. If you talk about, rural communities, how do you support farmers? You know, you must say, okay, let them form cooperative societies, come together. If you need to give them fertilizer to go and farm, give it to them at no cost. You know, if you give them 8,000, how do we know who is collecting the 8,000? How do we know? During the COVID-19, we saw what happened.
Okay.
A lot of people were claimed to have given palliative, but they didn't receive the palliatives.
Okay, Doctor. Before we round up in a few minutes, I would like for us to take a look at this story. There's a story on The Guardian that says Akpabio eyes constitutional role for traditional rulers as Abbas commit to restructuring. So we've been hearing these calls getting louder and louder. Very recently, the Deputy Senate President visited, I think it was in Kaduna, where he visited some traditional rulers, and that was, you know, the conversation there. So the issue of constitutional rules for traditional rulers, what exactly can we do in that regard?
Well, there's so much talk about constitutional rule for traditional rulers, and I know traditional rulers, they need to be given some, I don't know whether the right word is some powers, you know, because right now they operate under the commissioners for chieftaincy, local government and chieftaincy affairs in many states.
Yes.
And so you see some young people, you know, going to traditional rulers and, giving them instructions and things like that. And they are all in awe of some young traditional, commissioners and all this and all that. Now, if you look at it historically, you know, traditional rulers used to have powers in this country. They used to have powers, especially during the colonial era. But sadly, their powers, they abuse those powers. They abuse those powers. So I don't know the kind of roles they'll be given. Some persons will say, oh, security they should have some powers over maybe the control of, provision power with regard to security in the environment. I don't know whether it's economic power that they should be given. I don't know. So we have to know clearly what powers they need to be given, you know, because you see, if we don't articulate it properly, we may do some things that tomorrow we'll not say, oh, they shouldn't have been given those powers. Because we know that traditional rulers, they are important, but we know also that they contribute to some of the problems we have in Nigeria. They contribute. So I'm thinking that if we're going to give them powers and constitutional rules, then it has to be well articulated, so that we can clearly say, oh, this is justifiable. But if we are now extending the bureaucracy in the country and create a body, you know, traditional rulers, they are very important, but then they can be oppressive. You know, previously we have seen them. They can be very oppressive.
Okay. Well, we'll see how all that is. I know that there are bills in the National Assembly with that regard. So we'll see how, you know, that will play out even in the current times that we are in. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right.